to start off with, in our oscillators, we have our on and off switch. So at the moment you can see none of the oscillators are on. So I'm just going to switch on oscillator 1, and we have a second oscillator, and we also have a sub oscillator. So let's just focus on one oscillator at a time. To start off with, our waveforms are presented in collections or banks. So you can see here is your various different collections or banks. And there's a vast multitude of different styles, which we'll try and go through each one of these, picking a few different waveforms. In each bank, there's a selection of waveforms within there. So within the basics bank, we start off with our basic shapes, which is going to be exactly like any other subtractive synth, which is going to be exactly like a subtractive synth. So like we've went over, we have our standard sine wave, and we move up. And all I'm doing is actually clicking in this black area and moving it. You can also move your wave position, move the wave. And the great thing is, the view of this waveform actually changes as you move it up, which I think's just a brilliant added little bonus. So those of you who maybe are used to wavetable synthesis with something like massive, you don't really have that. It's just one parameter. And you may be wondering if we can modulate this. We can modulate basically anything we can touch. And as soon as you do that, it adds it into this viewpoint here. So I just moved envelope 3 attack, and it straight up moves it there, and you can see the position. So this is great for creating more warped sounds. So if you started with a basic waveform, for example, and then filtered it, you could actually have the LFO moving the filter in and out to create a very unique tone, which if you were to try to do that on subtractive synth, might take a lot of automation and modulation routing. So that is our basic shape. From there, we have a huge selection of different wave types, and you can see they get more and more complex. And what is really good is to set a rough medium, and again have the LFO modulate the sound in and out. So let's just flick through these sounds just so we can understand what they're doing. And you can probably tell that a lot of these have started off with a sine wave or a very basic waveform, which it's going to be throughout. When you move the wavetable up, it's almost like bringing up a filter cutoff if you're on low pass mode. And a lot of these sounds have been sampled from other synths, providing you with a huge range of modulation and different variety of sounds. So these are very classic sounding synth saws. So I'm not going to go through every one of these, but you can actually see there's a huge range of sounds in here. And they go from kind of super complex to super simplistic. But let's just have a click through the different banks. And as I'm flicking through, you can probably hear how each one of these would benefit in different genres. So just moving the wavetable even slightly throughout wavetable, it can really help add variation to your notes. This harmonics folder, I feel, if you wanted to sum it up, I feel it's very Aphex Twinny. It's very much like the sound you would hear in the beginning of like Come to Daddy or something like that. And format gives you kind of almost vocal sounding. So anyone who's used to using the format filter on your analog will be kind of used to that sound. So we went over harmonics. Let's have a look at instrument. Instrument gives you, as you can probably see straight up, gives you different types of instruments. So we've got piano, which has been multi-sampled several times. So it's been taking tons of different waves to give you a nice variation of sound. And noise is good for, you know, just various different noises, which you can add for textures, or if you're looking to build snares or kicks and want to add a noise layer on it, it's very useful. So you can hear that it's going to be perfect for sound design stuff, and maybe more just like small effects within your productions. Retro is kind of just various random kind of old school sounds. I believe that would be like kind of digital retro sounds, whereas vintage is all your vintage synths. So some nice Junos, Jupiters, some JXs. And some various other old school synths, which is always very useful. So you can get an old school vibe and apply that with, say, a piano, and then have it all modulated. So a person can kind of reference it. So they'll maybe hear a piano in there, they'll maybe hear a Moog, but then they just, you know, it's just completely warped, which is always very nice. So now that we've looked at the waveforms, let's kind of look at the different parameters which we can use to kind of adjust the sound.